If yesterday what they did was arrest me, beat me up and put me in, tomorrow, if the system gets worse, it could be killing me, you understand? It could be killing those I love. It could be worse than that. Currently, we say children are learning under, trees. The capital grant that is going towards education is less. We have no medicine in hospital. But if there are no voices, collective voices, trying to do something about it, it could get worse than it is. So I pick my strength from that, but I also pick my strength from women and men before me that have given their lives, put their lives on the line to try and make a difference, Women like Stella Nyanzi, men like Kiza Besigye, women like Agatha Tyre. Those women on a day-to-day basis inspire me to make a difference.
Born in 1999 in the heart of Uganda's Palisa district, Aloikin Praise Opoloje is not your typical law student. She's a mother, a daughter, a survivor, and now a name that has become impossible to ignore in Uganda's fight for justice. Her journey into activism didn't begin with a plan. It began with pain. Like so many stories in Uganda, it began with the health system.
My name is Praise Aloikin Opoloje, and I'm a law student at Makerere University in my final year of law school. I am a social justice activist, and I'm a mother to a little girl of 1 year. She just turned 1 in August. Other than that, I think there is nothing more to know about me. I can say that my life of activism has taken different phases. And at those different phases, I unlocked a certain new level of courage to do something. I can say the biggest level of courage that I got was late last year in August, when I gave birth to my daughter. And I tell this story quite a lot for everyone who asks me about my activism journey. I got pregnant and I had to travel back to Palisa. Palisa is the home district where I was born, and it's such a small little town. So I went back to give birth. On the day of giving birth, I gave birth and I got this big tear. And I needed sutures to be stitched such that I could, go and enjoy giving birth to my little daughter, the little life that I'd given birth to. However, the midwife that was there said there were no sutures to stitch me. And for about 45 minutes, I was passing out and coming back. And she was also frustrated just as much as we were frustrated. But what got to my nerves was at around the 50th minute, she tells my mom, if my mom can give her 5,000, then she can suddenly get the sutures. So my mom luckily had the 5,000, gave her the 5,000 Ugandan shillings, and I was stitched. And, I later got to get out of the hospital. But my experience in the hospital showed me just how broken the system was, and how my life for those few minutes had been valued at these 5,000 Ugandan shillings, which I wondered, if my mom didn't have, would I be able to live to see another day? Would I survive? But I kept that anger in me, wondering what I could do about it. But shortly after that, an organization called Agora that does digital activism started exhibitions. They started with the hospital, with the health exhibition, where people would share different photos from their different hospitals, show what's missing, show how bad the system was.
Abantu ba Palisa taka kubakobera kinini ekiseera kye mulina okwemerera mulwanira eggwanga lyammwe muwoneka amalwaliro ganyu.
That moment when her life was reduced to a bribe of 5,000 Ugandan shillings lit a fire that would not go out. She left the hospital angry, confused, but determined to find out why a country with laws so beautiful on paper was failing so badly in practice. She realized Uganda was not poor, it was bleeding, and that money meant to heal people like her was being wasted by people in power.
I always found an excuse to give myself, and I was like, maybe the hospitals are this bad, they don't have medicine, they don't have drugs, because we are poor as a country, we don't have the money to afford those things. But shortly after that, they ran the Parliament exhibition. Now, in the Parliament exhibition, they were showing how we actually have money, but this money is being wasted. You find a budget of, for example, the speaker's entertainment is 10 million. And I'm asking myself, what is this entertainment like? Is she hiring Beyonce for a private show or something? And I start to get agitated. You find that still the speaker and the deputy speaker, people that earn about 40 million Ugandan shillings, are being given bedding allowances, furniture allowances, closet allowances. Like, can that 40 million cater for that? So that inspired me to stand up and say, no, we actually have money, but these guys are robbing this money and keeping it for themselves, and I'm not going to watch it happen. So that has been my phase of inspiration. So when the march to Parliament started, the campaign, I was like, okay, I'm going to rally people to come for this march. And that's just how my story is in line with your spirit.
The more Praise studied the law, the more she saw how it was not being applied. In theory, Uganda's constitution recognizes human dignity, freedom, and the right to protest. In reality, her insistence on a fair legal process got her tortured. In the cells and courts, she learned that justice in Uganda was not about what the law said. It was about who held power and who held fear.
I'm a law student, like I started with introducing myself. But one big lesson I picked from the torture, I picked from the brutal hours, was that the law in theory is so different from what the law is in practice. You'll be shocked. You'll be shocked. Because I remember when I got into police, the whole issue of beating me up started when I refused to write a statement without my lawyer. And I was like, I'm not going to write a statement unless my lawyer is here. And they're like, oh, so now you want to be violent. You are trying to us, you know the law more than us. You think you're studying. And this guy beat me, strangled me. You see how tiny I am. He threw me against furniture. And it hit me, no, the law is so different. Even when it came to applying for bail, the process we went through, the amount of money they were asking some people for, I come to realize that our constitution has become a mere paper, because those are just words that if they are not enforced, then we cannot get to actualize the things it says. For example, the right to peacefully protest. For example, accountability, the right for people to, enjoy certain, rights, like the right to education, the right to food, freedom to assemble, and etc. I realize that someone needs to, put life in that constitution, needs to put life to those black words on white paper by ensuring that our leaders live by them. And yes, I despite what happened, the brutal arrest, the beating, the torture, and later being sent to prison, I gather my strength from the fact that if I do not do anything about it, it could get worse.
Uganda's injustice system was no longer just a legal concern for her. It had become a matter of survival. Her protest became louder, her stance more defiant. The price of speaking out? Accusations, misunderstanding, smear campaigns. Some even claimed she was being paid by foreign donors to stir chaos. But instead of being silenced, she doubled down, meeting misinformation with truth and fear with fact.
if yesterday what they did was arrest me, beat me up and put me in, tomorrow, if the system gets worse, it could be killing me. You understand? It could be killing those I love. It could be worse than that. Currently, we say children are learning under, trees. The money, the capital grant that is going towards education is less. We have no medicine in hospital. But if there are no voices, collective voices, trying to do something about it, it could get worse than it is. So I pick my strength from that, but I also pick my strength from women and men before me that have given their lives, put their lives on the line to try and make a difference, Women like Stella Nyanzi, men like Kiza Besigye, women like Agatha Tyrant. Those women on a day-to-day basis inspire me to make a difference. And just like any patriotic Ugandan, I have hope that this country can get better. I have hope that people can live in a country where their rights are respected, irrespective of how bad the situation is. And I'm a former history student, and I know that no freedom is given on a silver platter. Look at the French Revolution, look at the struggle for independence in different African countries. It has always had a price that someone has to pay. So that's where I derive my strength from. The Ugandan population is highly uninformed, and it doesn't help when it's being now misinformed. And they are the kind of people who easily jump on it, you understand? It's not the first excuse that, the state has used for different activists, It will say you're foreign funded, it will start running, it's gay people funding you to do that. And we live in a community where people have not yet appreciated that, the government is not, the government is hell-bent on putting them through these different forms of torture, through these different forms of, bad governance. And because they are misinformed, they easily jump on it. So when the government comes up and says, oh, these people are foreign funded, it's so easy. And it has really affected, of course, my credibility and the credibility of other young people, other activists that try to rise up and stand up. Because if they're paying you to do this, then maybe you're not genuine about it. But the test I usually give people is this. If I woke up today and told you that, oh, the speaker stole iron sheets that were meant to go to people that were homeless in Karamoja, have I made that up? Is it real? Isn't it enough to anger you that that is a fact and it's not a lie? Why do I need to be paid? To be told that because my mom had to pay a bribe of 5,000 Ugandan shillings for me to get such as to be stitched so I could live to see another day, then don't you feel like they're playing on your ignorance to continue to be allowed to do these, wrong things that they keep on doing? So the best way to counter misinformation is to also flood the system with the right information. Because if you try to go down the way they are also going down through maybe spreading misinformation and not being authentic, in the long run, it affects you. So my best strategy for misinformation really is flooding the system too with the right information and giving time, giving time its due course. Because when we had just started mobilizing for this march to Parliament, of course, there were so many things like, oh, these are gay people, they are spreading, rights of gay people, they want to, because of that homosexuality bill, that's why they are coming up and raising all these concerns. And then we informed people more and more that that's not why. And people left that, and now they jumped on to this new thing that we're being foreign funded. And over time, you come to see that people have also moved on from that. So that's just how we handle that. I personally, and together with other young people that I, have come to work with now, post-prison, post the 23rd March, do it. How do we flood the system with the right information and keep appealing to the problems that people suffer? We don't try so much, we just continue doing what we are doing, I'm currently running a campaign, the We the People campaign, together with some colleagues of mine. And what we do, because we know now mostly on social media that has stopped working, because we hold things like spaces and talk to people and allow them ask us these hard questions and we give them the, the tough responses. But if someone deep down in the village in Bundibujo, just here, they need that one piece of misinformation. Those young people are foreign funded and they will lose hope in the whole movement. So what we do now, we try to reach out to those people who do not have access to, for example, these gadgets or online information. And what we do is we go to these areas, we have like an open conversation, sort of debate with these people. We also teach them more about their civil rights, about their human rights, and also encourage and empower them to, stand up and use non-violent resistance to demand for better leadership and better governance.
And when the time came to act, she didn't act alone. She joined forces with others like Nora Kobusinje and Kemitoma Kenzibo, staging one of Uganda's most controversial protests in decades. The movement wasn't just about protests. It was about building a family, a community of courage, because oppression collaborates, and so must the resistance.
I usually call activists the enlightened people, you get? And it's always easier to mobilize with them for specific causes, especially for me who uses nonviolent resistance as my form of activism, things like marching, things like civil disobedience. It's easier when you already have a family of activists you know that you can always reach out to for a certain cause, you get. We usually say it's really important for us to carry out things like civic education, but it's so hard to mobilize people that, for example, are going through hunger. They have not eaten, they have no hope for a next job, they are still not yet enlightened. So when you have this family of activists, this family of people that have already been awakened to the need for change, to the desire for change, it's much easier to mobilize with them for specific causes. But also after my 2 experiences being in prison, I remember I was really mentally, tortured. I had a lot of trauma coming out of prison. But it helps a lot to know that there are certain circles of people that, you could reach out to for help if you needed it, financial help if you needed it, mental health support if you needed it. So it's really important for us to collaborate, because that is what our oppressors are doing. Our oppressors are collaborating. You report that someone has stolen something. For example, just recently, our president pardoned a corrupt official and even instructed the government to compensate him for the financial loss he had bared while he was in prison. And I asked myself, wait a second here. Are we just paying someone for being put in prison for being corrupt? So that's the level of collaboration that our oppressors have. When we raise concerns about, for example, Anita Among, who is our speaker, and the corruption that she has been performing while in parliament, the next moment you will see the president posting about her saying, this is the best person I've worked with. She's so ambitious, she's so productive. And you're like, wait a second here. So the oppressors have built a network. Just recently, we saw Besigye being kidnapped from Nairobi. It's now no longer collaboration. It's now regional. Who knows? It could even be continental. It could even be worldwide. So it's really important for us to also collaborate and build our synergies, not just within the country, but also outside the country, to learn from each other, to learn from our strengths and our weaknesses, and also to pick lessons from the people that have come before us. It's really very easy to lose track in a system that you're fighting that seems to be fighting back and has resisted. And for some time there, you can stand up and ask yourself, but am I on the right track? Am I doing the right thing? Is there hope? And people keep asking you, you marched to parliament, but the speaker is still the speaker. You protested Nude, but you see, they're still stealing money and there is nothing that has been done about it. The president will keep pardoning as many corrupt officials as he can. And sometimes that can be overbearing on you. But when you have people that have walked this journey before you, acknowledge you and say we see you and say we appreciate the work you're doing and extend a hand of support in one way or the other, it's encouraging. It reminds you that what you're doing is the right thing that you're supposed to do.
Because I want Anita Among to resign. She has stolen from this country. These resources are not hers. This is taxpayers' money. I am urging all the young people out there in Uganda to come out in large numbers.
Even when it felt like nothing was changing, when even critics asked, what was the point? Praise found her answer in those who walked the road before her.
When you see people that the government has hunted before you, that the government has tried to frustrate before you, it reminds you that you're actually on the right track and you're doing the right thing. But also it's some sort of mentorship and guidance, because when people express support for you, it's easier for you to always reach back to them when you have queries along the way of activism. So that is what support from prominent activists before me has helped me with.
But what does change look like? For Praise, it's not just about removing corrupt leaders. It's about citizens realizing they hold the real power. Uganda's problems run deep, but Praise believes transformation begins with truth, with courage, and with young people refusing to wait their turn.
In our constitution, our first article says that power belongs to the people, and people shall exercise this power in line with the constitution. And in that same constitution, it goes ahead to give duties of a citizen, the rights of a citizen, and so on and so forth. But for so long, Ugandans have sat back in the back seat and allowed dictatorship to flourish, and allowed corruption to flourish, and allowed bad governance to flourish. And for me, what I envisage is a world of Ugandans that are able to realize the power that they hold. Because leaders can come and go. Leaders can promise and give the best manifestos. When our current dictator, Museveni, was coming into power, he told people that this was not a mere change of guards, it was a fundamental change. But the life that we are living now as Ugandans is worse than even the life that we lived in the time of Amin Dada. So you realize that it's hard for me to say that I'm going to do ABCD to try and control what governance looks like. But my activism is empowering people to stand up and hold leaders to account such that they do not govern as if they are running their private businesses or cartels. What do I envisage in resource allocation? I envisage a budget that prioritizes the needs of Ugandans. We cannot be having a budget that is, spending that much to pay people that are not really doing actual work at the end of the day. But also, it should be alive to the needs of Ugandans. Do we need more money in the education sector? Then let us inject the money there. Why are we buying new cars for members of parliament each and every other day? Why are members of parliament exempted from paying taxes when a Ugandan who is earning 400,000 Ugandan shillings is still being taxed off that money and expected to pay their rent, expected to take their children to school, expected to survive and live a decent life? And these are civil servants being paid by this government that determines what their salary scale is. So basically what I would say is having a budget that is alive to the reality of Ugandans, that is alive to the priorities, to the problems, to the challenges of Ugandans.
Despite the hate, the shame, the surveillance, she keeps going. And she urges others to understand this fight is personal. The injustice won't just pass you by.
This is what I tell people, that you see in Uganda, you can choose to die on the front line or you can choose to die, due to the bad governance that exists. It doesn't matter on which side where you are. The problems, the bad governance and the injustice in Uganda will find you. When you ask the people that were buried in rubbish in Chitezi, they did not expect that one day they'll wake up and they are gone or they are dead because rubbish fell on them that the government had failed to manage. When you ask the number of people that have died in cars on those roads because of, the poor road system that we have in this country, they did not envisage that maybe that's how they would die. But death found them. And I was at a near-death experience on a bed, giving birth to my daughter. And I didn't know that's how I would die. But I was almost to that point. So you either die trying to fight, changing the system to be a better system, to give you a fighting chance. Or you sit back and wait for when the system finally kills you. But what I say is this. In fighting to better the system, there is that little hope. There is that little chance for better governance, for better change, that eliminates the chance of you dying under the bad governance or the bad system that exists.
For Praise, activism is not just a title, it is survival. It is the language of love for a country that has refused to love its people back. It's a way of saying, I will not wait quietly for justice. I will stand in the storm and remind them that power belongs to us.
I would really be glad to exist in a country, Uganda, where people know their rights, where people are patriotic about this country and understand what patriotism is. It's not supporting a certain political party. It is not, going to Chankwanzi and being indoctrinated. It's about the love to see that your country upholds the rule of law, upholds justice. For that woman down there in the village who may never have access to the president to, kneel and beg, to that man out there who is trying to put in as much hard work as possible, but this system keeps failing them, to that girl, to that boy in school who dreams one day of being a pilot, of being a doctor, of being a lawyer, to that girl trying to run away from female genital mutilation, you get, to that woman trying to run away from the abuse that her husband subjects her to those people who are still stuck in prison and are weighed down by frivolous charges, are weighed down by the poor justice system that exists. How do we ensure that those people get to see hope? And that's Uganda and village, where a woman, child, man or boy are very passionate about the rule of law and the reign of justice in Uganda.